The following presentation on Picta Dicta, an interactive Latin curriculum for classical education, will be presented by Mrs. Katie Meregaglia, who was introduced to classical education as an undergraduate at Concordia University, Irvine. She earned a master's degree in American Studies at the University of Dallas. She now teaches Latin part-time at Zion Lutheran School in Nampa, Idaho. Please welcome Mrs. Meregaglia.
Salvete, magistri. Nomen mihi est magistra Meregaglia, and I'm excited to talk about this curriculum, Picta Dicta, that we have been using at Zion Lutheran School in Nampa, Idaho this past year. I have taught Latin for 7 years at 3 different schools, and I've used 4 other curriculums in addition to Picta Dicta. And this one, by far, has been my favorite because it is very interactive for the students. It is also very low prep for teachers, which is great, among other reasons that we'll talk about. So the ultimate goal of Picta Dicta is, as stated by Picta Dicta, to prepare students to be able to read ancient texts grammatically. And I think this ought to be the goal of any Latin curriculum, to actually get students to the point of engaging with original Latin texts, while also knowing the grammar, not being sloppy about the readings, but knowing how to do that well. Picta Dicta uses what they call the middle method. So our approach to teaching ancient languages incorporates elements from both the reading method, which emphasizes the input of examples, and the grammatical method, which emphasizes rules and patterns. The result is that students using our programs develop both an intuition for the language and an understanding of how it works in the system. And I think it really does embrace both of those techniques, as you will see. And from my experience, even just this past year teaching it to 4th graders, they really are developing that intuition and able to start to try to communicate themselves, trying to speak Latin to each other or to me, and not being intimidated to actually read an extended chapter of Latin text. This curriculum is a digital print hybrid, which means there are digital components that are web app based, as well as some videos even. But then there's also traditional pen and paper components of the curriculum as well. And you're able to kind of tailor which one you really favor and emphasize, to an extent at least. So in this presentation, I'm hoping to give you a taste of what we do at Zion Lutheran in class. I'm going to be showing you a little bit of what the first or second day of 4th grade Latin would look like, and then I'll also give a broader overview of the different levels of the curriculum, because this curriculum can be used as young as kindergarten, and it can be used up through 10th or even 12th grade. Okay. So to get to this, I'm going to be showing you the digital side and how I would introduce vocabulary in the classroom. I am going to need your participation, so I'll direct you more on that in a second. So we'll start by looking at these pictures and just talking about them in English first. So what do you see in this picture? What is this a picture of? You can just shout it out.
A boy waving.
A boy? Okay, good. It does look like a boy waving. This is our picture for boy. Also, you could use it for kid, potentially, more generically. But the word for this in Latin is puer. So repeat after me. Puer.
Puer.
Okay, what do we have here?
Eye. Looks like an eye.
Yes, it is, an eye. The word in Latin is oculus. So, very good. Okay, we have oculus, puer. What does this look like? Yeah, a pen, a writing utensil, a pencil. So this is a stylus.
Stylus.
Well done. What about this? Yes, a finger. It's a finger. A digitus.
Digitus.
Yes, and digitus can also be used for toe. Throwing that out there. Digitus. Okay. What do you think this is? Grass. Okay. Anything else more general?
Garden.
Grass.
Outside.
Meadow.
A meadow. Yes, it is a meadow or a field, specifically an open clearing, not like a field where you grow crops. So this is a campus.
Campus.
Very good, yeah. Like where we get camp, or a campsite. Campus. Okay, what's this?
River.
Very good, yes. A river. Fluvius.
Fluvius.
Fluvius. Good. Okay, at this point, I'm going to be quizzing you a little bit on what we just went over. So this is a puer, or the word is puer. Now you're going to see a group of pictures. I don't know if you can see it clearly in the back, but they're labeled A, B, C across the top, and D, E, F. So you can we'll just call out for this. If I were in my class, I would hand out whiteboards, and the students would each use a whiteboard to write their answer and hold it up so that we could very quickly see how they're doing. But for this, you can just call out the letter
E.
E. E, good, puer. Excellent. How about oculus? Oculus.
A.
Well done. Campus?
Let's get this one wrong.
Okay, yes, good. That would be helpful.
D.
D. Oh, no, it wasn't that. Let's try again. What is campus?
B.
Well done. We're going to see that one again now. Stylus. Stylus. Campus. Again.
C.
And when you're doing this, you can start to incorporate some Latin phrases also. So I might ask my students, I'll say digitus, and then I'll say ubi est digitus. So that they also you could, instead of doing whiteboards, students can respond with ecce, look, there it is, and point to it. So there's a few options of how you can do this. Let's see, what word was that? Digitus.
B.
B. And fluvius, ubi est fluvius. Okay, here's a new picture. What is this a picture of? Flowers, yeah, and where do flowers grow? A garden, yes. This is our picture for garden. It can also be used for vegetable garden, which in the word is hortus. Hortus. Okay. Ubi est hortus. Well done. Okay, so that's our new vocab. Now we're going to move on to looking at some grammatical patterns with these words. So in this picture, what do you see? Two eyes. Yes, we used to have one oculus. Now there's a picture of two oculi. Yeah, oculi. So I went from oculus to oculi. Okay, now we have two. Would anyone like to give a stab at this one? Stili. Good. We had one stilus. Now we have two stili. Okay, how about this one? We had one digitus. Now we have two digiti. Good. And this is, you could also say you have five digiti. Okay. What do you see in this picture? A boy in a meadow. Very good, yes. And so in Latin, what are the words you know so far? Puer in campus. Good. I think that's about it. So this, our sentence for this picture will be puer in campo est. Why don't you repeat after me? Puer in campo est.
Puer in campo est.
Excellent. Okay, what is this? Puer in campo est. Now we have another one. We have a puer, and what is the puer in? A fluvius. Good, but now when we put it in a sentence, puer in fluvio est. Puer in fluvio est. Thank you. Puer in fluvio est. Anyone want to try this one? We have a puer and a hortus. Good, I'm hearing it. Puer in horto est. Yeah. Puer in horto est. Okay, oculi. Go ahead and call out.
A.
Oculi. Excellent. Puer in campo est.
D.
Very good. Stili.
A.
And puer in horto est. Puer in horto.
E.
What am I hearing?
E.
E is an arrow.
Yeah, I heard E. Ah, yes, it is E. Puer in horto est. Digiti.
C.
C. Excellent. Puer in fluvio est. Puer in fluvio est. Well done. Good. Okay. So that is, in the first day or two, I would teach those two lessons in class. And I'm not going to go through a whole lesson because that takes usually a week of class. But I'm going to show you what this looks like. So what we've been looking at is the primer section of this curriculum. And it really is meant for the elementary school age, around 3rd and 4th grade. And the curriculum goes through 30 lessons, and those are completed in 1 year. So I'm just scrolling through to show you that. And each lesson has at least 11 different exercises to use with your class throughout the week. So what I've showed you was just the very introductory ones. There's plenty more practice exercises where they keep getting that same identifying the picture and matching it to a sentence. There are other exercises where it emphasizes those endings, so the students just have to fill in the ending of a word. And as you noticed, I haven't used any grammatical terms yet in introducing, even though we learned the nominative plural and the ablative after a preposition. So the next step, once you've practiced these and introduced the pattern, then you start to give names and labels to those concepts. So as you can see here, there's a lesson, and when you get to that point, that actually is a short video that has a very concise, neat grammar lesson in it. And you can, as the teacher, use that, or you can teach the grammar lesson yourself if you would rather. In this first lesson, in lesson 1, that would teach the name nominative, singular, and plural. Then there's a second lesson, lesson B, that would teach the ablative form after a preposition, specifically after the preposition in. This exercise focuses on endings, and students have to identify then if a word is nominative or ablative. So that it'll give you that puer in horto est, underline the word horto, and they select if it's ablative or nominative. And finally, at the end of the week, you get to listen to and watch a short story using the grammar and vocabulary that you have been working on for the week. So I'm going to go ahead and mute this and play this one for you. This one is quite simple because it is the first lesson. And a few things you might want to know. The word ubi means where, so they will use that. We'll just watch it through one time.
Ubi est puer? Esne puer in horto? Puer in horto non est. Esne puer in fluvio? Puer in fluvio non est. Esne puer in campo? Puer in campo est.
Okay, so quite simple. By the time students get all the way through lesson 29, they have learned, let's see, it's the first and second declension noun system, 200 vocabulary words and multiple prepositions, and the third person singular and plural form of verbs. So by the end of the year in third or fourth grade, students are seeing and listening to stories like this one. I like this one especially because it highlights kind of the playful nature of the curriculum, that there's just some fun stories, as you will see, listening to this one, Templum.
Ecce monstra, et pueri. Monstra bacula habent, et pueri timent. Pueri ad templum curunt, et templum ascendunt. Iam pueri in tecto templi stant, et monstra sub tecto templi stant. Pueri saxa ex tecto templi sumunt, et saxa ad monstra iaciunt. Monstra ab pueris non curunt, sed sub pueri stant. Iam luna in caelo est, et monstra dormiunt. Pueri templum descendunt, et ab monstris curunt.
So by the end of that year, students really are able to engage with fun little stories, even tell their own stories, and you can communicate quite a lot on that amount of Latin. Good. Okay, so that was a basic overview of the digital side. Now, these are the pen and paper components of the primer. So each student will get a primer workbook, and in that workbook, they record all of their new vocabulary. They also record all of their new reguli, which are the rules, the grammar rules, and they'll record their tabuli. So throughout the year, they fill out this chart so that they always have a reference to those noun charts to look at in their workbook. There also are workbook exercises for every lesson, and most of them, I think all of them in the primer look like this. They have a picture, and then the students write a sentence to go with the picture. So in that first picture, there's a wolf walking away from the boy. So the sentence that they would write is lupus ab puero ambulat. And then also there's a few grammar questions at the bottom. In addition to that workbook, there's also a quiz pack that you will get with the curriculum. And this is what the quizzes look like. It's also all picture-based. The students just fill in the Latin word next to the picture. There's quizzes for both vocabulary and then the sentences where they're using those patterns more. And a big part of this curriculum and why it uses so many pictures is because it's trying to bypass the one word to one word correlation in a language. So it's trying to communicate that a word conveys a concept, which is part of why when you're going over the vocabulary, like when we went over campus, you can emphasize that it's a field, but it's also that concept of an open clearing, a camp. So you can talk about multiple concepts that relate to that picture. There's also an excellent teacher guide here, which has all your normal teacher guide things like the answer keys and what the students need to write in their workbooks. It also just is it gives great instructions for the teacher for every single digital exercise. It gives a paragraph or two explaining how to use it. And in each lesson, it even gives a basic script of how to teach the vocabulary, how to teach the new patterns. It gives review exercises that you can just orally ask the students. And it also gives a very nice weekly schedule to show you like on what day you would do each exercise and how to break that down, as well as a 2-week schedule if you want to take things a little bit slower, or if you don't have Latin, if you only have Latin a couple times a week, sort of thing. So very flexible and easy to use. Okay, now in addition to all that, in the primer year, the students also get 2 readers to read. So after the first 15 lessons of the first year, the students are ready to read this Latin text, Puer et Monstrum, and it is a 12-chapter book, short chapters, but still 12 chapters, and it is all entirely in Latin. This one is very fun. It's about a little boy who finds an egg in a nest in a tree, and he brings it home with him, and then when it hatches, it turns out that it is a monster, and it is about their adventures together. These ones also have excellent instructions at the beginning of how to teach them and how to use them, and both in the classroom and as homeschool curriculum, or even just as supplementary material to another curriculum. And then by the end of the year, they're ready for this reader, another 12 chapters, another fun, lighthearted story to get through. So I've been focusing on Primer 1, but there are many more parts of this curriculum. There's a second Primer book, which completes the noun system and adds some more verbs. There then is the grammar level of this curriculum. The grammar level is really meant to be used in the secondary education, middle school and high school years, and it's a little more hard-hitting. You get through those patterns and grammar more quickly. So right now there's grammars 3 and 4 that are developed, and they're working on grammar 5. By the end of grammar 4, students have encountered everything except the subjunctive grammatically. So it does advance students pretty quickly. In just 2 years of the grammar, you get to that point. And then there's also vocabulary builders, which can be used supplementally to this, or you can start as early as kindergarten using some of those vocabulary builders just to introduce students to Latin words and concepts. Okay, the grammars 3, 4, and 5. These ones, we're actually at Zion going to start using grammar 3 in 5th grade next year because the students already have completed those primers. The first 10 lessons of grammar 3 is a review of those primers, but then it quickly moves beyond that. And these grammars look a lot like the primer. There are 30 lessons in each one, but now there's a reading that goes along with every single week, and it becomes a continuous story eventually, which is very exciting and compelling. I haven't finished reading all of it, but I've gotten to a point where there's some boys and they're looking at their village, some Roman boys, and they realize that barbarians have come and have started setting things on fire, so they're compelling to read. Let me show you really quickly. This is what the grammar looks like, a lot like the primer. Some of the exercises are slightly different. And as you can see in this first lesson, they get through a little bit more than what they would in the primer. And these are the grammar workbooks. They're a little more intensive than the primer and focus on those grammatical concepts even more. I don't know how well you can see that, but they, like here, you write down the declension of each noun. You have to identify nominative singular. Here they're working on filling the blank using a and odd, away from and towards. And then here they're actually parsing words from the text. So some of the words are bolded and then students will parse those words. This is what the grammar quizzes look like. Again, very picture-based. And here are two examples from the grammar readings. So this is the layout of the text, and if you've ever used Lingua Latina, it's fairly similar to that, where there are the picture helps on the side, and it's really easy when teaching to quickly, before you read the chapter with your students, to go over each of those pictures to remind them what they mean, and then read through the text together. And there's questions already prepped right there that are in Latin for you to ask the students. Tim Griffith is the one who developed this curriculum, and he always suggests, if you're teaching these grammar readings, to go through them about 3 times. So the first time, students can work in pairs and translate the text together, 1 sentence at a time. As soon as the fastest group is done with that, you kind of move on and you do a dramatic reading of the text. You can let students act it out, which they always love. And then finally, you can ask them these review questions where they have to look back at the text and give you Latin responses. This is an example from chapter 58, so that's in Grammar 4. And I'm just going to read you a couple sentences so you can hear the level of grammar that's used in that. Post paucas horas media venit nox, fugit e conspectu luna, et operuerunt caelum nubes noctus atrae. So it advances quite quickly to where they get to. Here's an example of what the vocabulary builders look like. There are 3 to use right now. This one, the natural world, is the one that you would use in the early grades. There's a lot of introduction of animal names and plant names and nature concepts. And this is interesting because a lot of times these words are introduced in a full sentence, so they're learning the word in the context of a whole Latin sentence. So my experience teaching Picta Dicta this past year at Zion Lutheran has been that it is very interactive and enjoyable for students. One of our students at the end of the year, he said that he's a 4th grader, and one of the last things he said was, "I hope next year we do more Latin." And so we were excited about that. And students have enjoyed trying to, talk to each other in Latin and talk to me. And it's just fun to see them developing that overall culture of wanting to use Latin as a language. And students start, as you saw, hearing, speaking, reading, and writing Latin right away. So it's not just isolating the reading and writing. It's not just isolating the hearing and speaking. It's all of it right away. It's also low prep for teachers, so all of this just comes ready-made. And I did not even highlight that, like when you're introducing new vocabulary, you can select a button so that it actually pronounces it for you. So you don't have to be an expert in speaking Latin. You don't have to know how to pronounce every word correctly because you can learn it with the students with the curriculum as you go. It also provides immediate feedback for students. They don't have to wait for you to grade a paper and mark up a paper. They're getting immediate feedback on how they're doing with the endings, and sometimes we have them keep track of how many points they get, how many tally marks, so that they can kind of get a sense of how they're doing. And it is very flexible in how you apply this curriculum. So you can, there's even a whole slightly different homeschool model way to use the curriculum. It looks fairly similar, but it's a slightly different order. So you can use it for homeschooling, you can use it for co-ops, and for 5-day schools. We used it at Zion where I would actually come in and teach the basic concepts of a lesson, and then the rest of the week they had a different Latin teacher who would do all of the workbook assignments with them. So that was a little more of how you might do it in a co-op or something. And finally, each student can be enrolled to be able to use this digital side at home on their own. So if a student needs extra help, or if you are in a co-op model and you want to assign exercises on the computer as homework, you can do that and you can track how your students are doing. That's also how, if you're using it for homeschool, that's often how it's used. And the curriculum really has excellent support. It is created by teachers who just love Latin, they love speaking it, they love learning it and teaching it. And every teacher using the curriculum should really meet with Tim Griffith to discuss how to apply it to their school. He just has tons of ideas of how to teach it and how to make it work and how to tailor it to anyone's situation. You can even meet with him again halfway through the year to course correct or ask questions. The website is pictadicta.com. And if you want to contact them, the email is info@pictadicta.com, where when you meet with Tim Griffith, he'll meet with you on Zoom, and he'll talk for the whole hour, and you won't get through near as much as you could, but it is extremely helpful. And yeah, we've loved using it at Zion. So now, I would love to open it up for questions. Yes.
But the thing up there, that vocabulary, the supplementary vocabulary, can be used with younger grades. I teach first grade.
Okay.
Yes. What digital versus cards, like what all does that entail? What does it come with?
I have not used that one yet.
I can help with that if you would
Excellent.
like.
Thank you.
I'm currently using Picta Dicta, the natural world vocabulary, in my kindergarten classroom. And I display the pictures on the smartboard and then click on the little box that she was talking about where it says hear it, so they can hear the correct pronunciations of the words.
And we can hear the correct
Yes. And I can hear the correct pronunciations of the words. My students' favorite part was the interactive practice, where they would say a word and then you would have to select the picture that matched with the word. I did not have my students do a lot with speaking pronunciation or trying to read the words just because I'm still doing the English phonics. But those are options that are included with the program. They also have little background stories that go with a lot of the different vocabulary words to give context to go along with your history, with Aesop's fables, a lot of those things. This was my first year using it, so I very much skimmed the surface of what was available to me, and we're enjoying what we've used so far.
Thank you. I wanted to show you really quickly. This is, you can select this button, hit hear it,
Puer,
and it will say it for you there.
puer,
Other questions?
I had a comment.
Oh, yes. Go
I am
ahead.
probably the biggest idiot in the classroom today. I'm on the school board for Amy, the same school she's at, and we just started classical education last year. we were going to go for three grades, 4 grades, whatever at a time.
Okay.
And we went full into it, and with Amy and the other teachers, they've done a fabulous job. Now, to get to the point, you mentioned something about the children talking Latin at home. Our school board president was at a meeting one night, and he says, I don't know if this is a good thing that we're teaching our children Latin. They come home and they sit and they talk Latin around my and my wife,
Yep.
and we don't hear what's going on. We don't have an idea what they're talking about.
That's right.
But-
Sounds like a
and that's-
parent class situation to me.
That's a testimonial to what Amy and our teachers have been doing with the Latin in just 1 year. We have a part-time teacher that comes in
That
and
is
helps
so
out,
cool.
but it's great that,
Yes.
I gotta admit, I was 100% against classical education when they first brought it to the school, to the church.
Yeah.
For changing your position.
Oh, I preach it to everybody now. I've got several brothers that are in different churches and schools, and I said, you guys need to do this.
Yeah.
You need to go this direction.
Yeah.
Give up on the state.
Wonderful. Yes. And it's great to hear when students want to use Latin as a language, actually use it. Great. Yes.
You're not the dumbest one here. I have some pretty basic questions. So did they have classical and ecclesiastical pronunciation or just classical?
It's just classical.
Okay, and then this is not Christian, right?
The makers of it are Christian, and they do use it at a Christian school. The primer, there's nothing that really makes it specifically Christian. However, Tim Griffith did say when you get to grammar 4 or 5, I can't remember which, I think it's 5, they're going to have 2 options for stories. One of them is a Christian living in Rome and kind of their experience with that, and then the other one is more of a standard Roman experience.
When you said natural world vocabulary book, that's what kind of was like, ooh, what are we going to see in there?
Yes.
But you haven't
We're
noticed
seeing
anything.
plants and animals, we're learning vocabulary for words of the weather, parts of the body.
But not evolution.
Yes.
No, we're learning nature. Vocabulary words for things that you would find in nature, a lot of your science terms. And there were a couple things that I had forgotten their word origins that were a touch spicy, but if you gloss over it, the kids don't know what it means either. What's the last word for seed? That's what I would highly recommend skipping when you're in the primary grade.
And so then the thing I don't understand is this is on the web, or you get it on an app? Like if I don't have Wi-Fi, I can't use this, is that right?
Probably. I don't know if there might be some workaround for that, but yeah, there needs to be some
We
kind
do
of.
Latin at our church, but we use DVDs.
Okay.
They don't have this on DVDs, right? And
No.
we wouldn't be able to be interactive with it. Okay.
I don't think so, yeah. Yes, you do need to have some form of internet to use it. Yes.
You mentioned that you had whiteboards in the classroom, or like individual ones. Could you
Yeah.
expand on how you use those with the kids?
Yeah. For a lot of the exercises, let me pull up one that we didn't go over yet. If I did exercise 1B, the students would have their whiteboards. This says fluvi, but it leaves off that ending. Students on their whiteboards would just write in the ending. Usually I give them some kind of hand signal for when they hold it up, and then I quickly can scan the room, see how they did. And either I can scan the room and say, try again, that's not quite right, or they can self-correct when I put the answer on the board. So usually those whiteboards are used for the digital side, the web app exercises. Just so that way each student is actually writing something out, each student is actually thinking about it and not just sitting back and letting, that one kid answers all the questions, I'll let him do it. So it really gets everyone engaged for every question. Does that help answer that? Or do you have more?
Yeah, and can I follow up?
Yes.
And you said that there's a pen and paper. Are you using that side by side with this, or is that homework for them at home, or how do you incorporate that into the classroom?
Yeah, the way we've been doing it is the students often actually have done the workbook exercises in class, and then as a class we'll go through and grade them, and they'll correct their own. We don't always enter it as a grade necessarily, we view it as practice oftentimes, but so it's really goes along with this. You first teach it using this part, but then you go over the vocab again and they write it in their books. And once you've introduced the patterns, they then go to their workbooks and fill out some, assignment. But you can absolutely assign that as homework, especially if you don't want to assign them. Like, I'm very wary about having students go home and do homework on the computer. So I like to keep it that pen and paper at home, and we're just doing this part as a class. But you can assign the digital side as homework if you would like to. Yes.
Another question. Is this something like, you talk about homework, is this something that's accessible by the students from home at all through their, with their parents' assistance, if the parents want to help?
Yeah, you certainly can make that available to students. It just
So
depends
they can
on-
access this program also then?
Yes. My students didn't this year. I didn't give them that access, but there are a couple students who, fell behind a little bit and needed extra summer help, so their parents came to us and said, is there anything we can do? And so we can give you this. We can set them up with an account so that they can go through it this summer and practice what we did this year.
It's not a common practice then?
It just depends on the school, I think. Some schools do incorporate that as their everyday, but.
Like, my daughter did it once a week on a flipped classroom.
Okay.
So she did level 3 and it was flipped. So they would do the computer stuff.
Yes.
And then they would do the workbook. And they would really do all that at home, and then they would talk about it together in class.
Okay.
So that was kind of that model where.
Interesting. So she was
Where a
doing
lot
both the
happened-
workbook and the.
Yeah, and a lot happened
Exercises.
outside of class, and then in class was spent, discussing and prepping, for the next class.
Yeah. Awesome. Yes.
I'm wondering if you, how much time you spend on this in a given week. So if you do it 5 days, and how much time each day, and that kind of thing.
Yes. This last year at Zion with the 4th graders, they had Latin 3 days a week. And I think there were 40-minute classes 3 days a week. And we didn't quite get through all of Primer 1. We got pretty close, but not quite through all of it. And I think next year we'll be able to do that. But since it was our first year, we didn't. And they did practice vocabulary every day. They just took 5 minutes every day with their main teacher and practiced the vocabulary, which helped a lot. Go ahead.
How long are the vocabulary lists for each lesson?
Yeah, so that was it.
Okay,
I think it was 6 or 7 words, yeah. And then when they're writing it in their workbooks, we would have thrown in ubi, because we heard that in the story, and possibly est ne, with that ne ending. We'd record that and write it in. So, yeah, usually less than 10.
So you said, you're using them side by side. Are you giving them quizzes from the physical copy, or are they because I didn't know if there was quizzes on the actual digital thing?
Yeah, I don't think there's quizzes on the digital, but there are. If you have students sign up for their own account, they can use these review and train models. So you could assign that as extra homework. It's not exactly a quiz, but it'll report back to you how your students did on it. But I usually just give them the physical copy quiz once a week, or however often you feel it's needed. Yes.
I know you already said, but could you tell us again how far into grammar they get
By the end of Primer 1, they get through first and second declension noun system, third person singular and plural verbs, and multiple prepositions. So the accusative after preposition, ablative after preposition, and 200 vocabulary words.
That's a very good question. So when you say noun system, you're doing all the cases?
Yes. Yep. Well, 5 cases, singular and plural, of first and second declension.
And then by the grammar, you said they're getting through everything except subjunctive?
By the end of the second grammar year.
All the
grammar
all the
4.
participial systems?
Yeah. The passive, as well as present system, yeah. I think with grammar 3, they get through the whole present system of verbs. And I believe all the noun functions. And adjective matching with nouns.
Are you familiar with Song School at all?
We use that at our school in 2nd grade.
Okay.
But I have not taught it myself.
Okay. I was going to say, if you're a little familiar, do you know how they compare? Is it just different? Are they struggling, I guess, getting into it, or is it pretty consistent?
So the 4th graders that I taught, they had song school Latin in second grade, and I don't think it was a hard transition for them. In fact, a lot of them, they were excited when they saw a word, and they'd, remember the little song that went along with it. So I think it transitions well. Yes.
So fourth grade is sort of, I feel like it's a point where there's a great variation in how much writing kids can do. Did you find like the worksheets, student workbook, was that a challenge for some students who are weaker on like the writing at that point, or was it pretty accessible for even though like, you know what I'm saying?
Yes. For the students that I had, I didn't run into that problem. I do know when I talked with Tim Griffith, he is all about teaching Latin as you're kind of their coach, and so you just want to find out what they know and help them where they are and to improve. So one of the things he says is if there is a student struggling writing things out, try, asking them the question orally and see are they getting that concept, and it's more the writing part that's stopping them. So there are kind of adjustments you can make as the teacher. Teacher's discretion.
You said you did many other Latin curriculum before. What did you not like about those that you picked Dicta?
So I think that there's strengths to all the curriculums that I've used, and I don't think any of them were bad. I just want to throw that out there. But for example, when I was teaching Wheelock, even at the 9th grade level, I found that just for some students, it's really hard to keep track of those grammatical terms, matching them to the endings, and figuring out how that fits into a translation. So it's just, there's a lot of kind of abstract things to connect, where I think this presents it more in that thinking of it as a true spoken language where the point is to communicate. And I think it allows for getting to the language more quickly while also making sure that you do learn the grammar along with it. I also taught Lingua Latina before, and that I found you just really have to be quite strong in speaking Latin yourself to be able to teach it, and it took me a ton of work every class to get ready and to prepare if I wanted to do any extra exercises to prepare those. So I really like that this gives the teacher all of that, and they don't have to do all of that heavy lifting themselves. That's all I have for you. So if you want to come up and look at any of these Latin readers and look through them, or you can look through the teacher workbook, or if you have any other questions that you think of, feel free to come talk to me. So, thank you.